Hi, friend. Happy Wednesday, wherever you are in the world. I hope you are going to jump in the chat with me and Helene and Jeff and John and Giacomo and Jen and join in this robust conversation because you might join live streams or listen to YouTubes all the time and just sort of sit back, relax, and get all the goodness. And you can do that, but that's not as enjoyable as leaning in and getting on that keyboard of your own and sharing all of your tips and your tricks and your questions and the things that you deem really important and necessary for all of us to know. One of the questions that I get asked probably the most often is honestly about these LinkedIn lives, which then we turn into audio podcasts a few days later that go up on all of your favorite podcast networks. So whether you listen to us in podcast form or whether you decide to join live on YouTube or Facebook or LinkedIn every single Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern, we're happy to have you here. And you will notice the vernacular that I'm using when I say we are so happy to host you. We love having you. There is a we, even though there's only me on screen. And again, to emphasize the point that we get asked about this so much is how do you produce all this content? Why do you even do this? Basically, I get that question a lot. Like, you have a lot going on, Kim. Why even spend an hour a day every single week, talking to these interesting people and putting out the content? Because listen, it does take some work. It's not all sunshine and rainbows and magical elves. It does take some work to do this each and every week. And so therefore, I cannot do the work by myself. So if you have ever joined before, or if you are new here and you hear me saying the royal word we, it is because there is an amazing producer behind this, and her name is Shelby, and she has been with me since day one when I started to do this crazy thing. So I hope you will help me in welcoming Shelby in the most uncomfortable position for her to the front of the screen.
Yes. Hello, friends. I love all of you, but I am uncomfortable in front of the screen sometimes. I'm learning a little bit to be a little bit better about it. I've been forced out of my comfort zone, big part because of you and all of you in the comments. But it's been good, and I'm glad to be here. Thank you so much for having me, Kim.
Well, I know one of the things that I was saying that we get asked about the most is sort of, why do we do this? Like, why do we come on live? And I feel like it's a question that not only I get a lot, but you get a lot. So I'm curious from your point of view, when people say, like, what are you doing every week? Or like, why are you doing this? What your answer to that is?
Yes. And I do giggle a little bit because people, for some reason, I think live streaming feels like next level, like a little bit like, okay, you put like content out on LinkedIn, great, but you live stream on LinkedIn. It seems to be like people are a little bit more hesitant for that. And I actually think it's easier. I think once you set up all of the systems and you set up your like calendar and you have like a good idea of what you're doing, the actual content producing piece of it, I feel like, and I'm not in front of the screen as much as you are, but I feel like that's kind of like it's almost systemized. So now it's just like, this is what we do. On Wednesday, we all meet for coffee at 1:00 and we have this wonderful conversation, and then an awesome piece of content comes out of it. And also several pieces of content, because Kim, you are brilliant in how you have used this. And it's been a huge like lesson for me in the social media space, where before I did social media management, I think this is like a brilliant way to actually get a team on board to use your own content, because you, Kim, and whoever joins you are the ones speaking and producing the content. And then the team behind the scenes can help make that a little bit easier for you and repurpose that content. And you show up with your brilliance, and it's your actual brilliance, not me trying to pretend to know what's inside your brain. So that's why I love it. That's why I think it's great, because it's an easier piece of content to produce, but it's also the value, I feel like, really showcases what you have inside of your brain, what your guests have inside of theirs, without having to do a lot of editing and rewriting and all that comes with other kinds of content.
1,000%. I think what also we had really amazing timing of is in 2020, a lot of the world went more digital. So a lot of the coffee meetings that we might have been having in person got moved to digital. So I think, I always tell people, and anybody who's an entrepreneur out there knows that you can have the best idea, but if it's at the wrong time, it's not going to go anywhere. So you have to have, I would not even say the best idea. You have to have a good idea, but more importantly, it has to be the right time. And so I think when we sort of perfectly timed this, hey, how can we meet with interesting people once a week, create a community, create something to build off of? It was that perfect timing because everything was going digital and everyone was saying, oh, okay, like I can set aside time on my calendar to meet digitally. And I think what that has also allowed us to do is expand the opportunities and outreach and network. And so when people ask me, why do you do this every week? I always say the amount of opportunities and connections that I have made from doing this every single week is not only astronomical, but it's not even just me. I know you've made connections. I know people who join us every week make connections. It's not just my own selfish self. It's for you and everybody else as well.
It's so wild. And what I like to tell people when they're like, why do we do this? I think that it creates a depth with your audience that you don't get in any other kind of like social media experience. I think if you want to have like very loyal friends online, this is actually such a fun space for that. Like, I know just from my experience of being in the comments here, it's like, I know a lot about Giacomo and Jeff and Jen, and like, I've made such good friends who have given me like real life advice and help and opportunities that like, you can't even explain that until you're kind of a part of it. I think it's very fun.
Well,
and I
think there's something. Oh my God, 1,000%. I think there's something to be said about the consistency factor, right? So Abby, actually my business partner, reminded me of something a few hours ago. And that was that 11 years ago, was it 11 years ago? 10 years ago, something 11 or 10 years ago today, our Shark Tank episode aired. And so arguably somebody could say, well, that had, I think, 6 million people tune in, and that was on the live broadcast. That doesn't even include, reruns and syndications. So, obviously that opportunity could be like, oh, wow, you probably have so many things come from that. But I think the consistency of this over the last 4 years has actually brought me more opportunities, more connections, more smart, interesting people than Shark Tank, even though that was arguably like a bigger platform. So I think sometimes it's a little bit like the tortoise and the hare. Some people are like, oh, but you only have a few, 100 people joining your lives every week. Like that's nothing compared to millions. But it's sort of that slow burn, that slow relationship build that actually I think ends up being more valuable.
Yes. And I know just like I can speak for myself, like being behind the scenes of this every single week, you get like more of an insight into like real life growth in your business, in my business, in Jen's business, like all together, all of us are kind of like just as a community growing together. And I think that a ton of value has come from the conversations here and the guests that you've had on. And it's just kind of fun. It's really fun, actually.
Well, and I think, again, just like the connections that we all make and offer each other. So like I'll use one that just happened last week. Everybody who knows me knows that I'm like a big chocolate chip cookie person, really any cookies. I'm agnostic with my cookie love, but especially chocolate chip. And, in that, heard me say that, repeated 100 times. I know you and I have sent cookies to people for clients as thank yous, whatever. And Karen, who's joining us today, ironically has a cookie company called Little Miss Moffat, and I got sent her cookies and they were amazing, to which I in turn went out and sent them out to somebody else. So again, that is literally an example from like the last 7 calendar days of the connections made through this community, which I think is so powerful. And when we talk about lives or we talk about, any audio content, even if you don't want to be on video and it's just a podcast, I think the deepening of the relationship is huge. And I know you work on other ones as well. So I'm curious, do you see that kind of across the board?
Yes. So I have recently I had a client who is in a more, what's the word? He's a lawyer. So there's lots of like, a little bit of a different vibe than the Coffee with Kim vibe, right? And it's been very interesting to me that like the difference of audiences across different shows, how they participate in the comments. But I do love that I have seen, I don't know about you, but I have seen a lot of these type of things turn into keynote speaking, workshops, coaching. And that client of mine has been asked that, even though that's not something that they were offering since going live, that has kind of been an opportunity that has shifted. Whereas if you were just looking in the comments, you might be like, why is he doing this? Right. And then seeing it on the backside, you're like, oh no, his DMs are popping. Like there's like so much coming from it that you might not be seeing immediately. Like you're saying, it's like that tortoise and the hare kind of thing. I really feel like live streaming is like, oh yeah, there they are again. Oh yeah, they're talking about that. Oh, I didn't know they knew about that. Yeah. And it's just like this repeated, like, oh, cool. And I don't know. I think it's really cool to see that happen. I've loved seeing that with each client that I've worked with.
I think that's huge. And I actually, as I play around, and I know kind of every week we always flip in, Giacomo's always like, and what about AI? Whenever we're talking about things. And, we've learned about the Perplexity app. And last week we learned about like upgrading to ChatGPT 4, which I did. And now I'm like hooked. So what I think is also interesting, I have a friend, Sam Parr, who hosts another podcast called My First Million. And he was showing me actually this AI, which is super creepy. And I'll have to ask him what the name was because I kind of forget. But basically, he gave the AI, I think it was like 16 hours of him talking. And then he wrote a script, like, I don't know, it was like 2 paragraphs. And then he played me basically the AI version of his voice. And I would say it was like 90% dead on. I mean, obviously, they missed some of his like, kind of like the colloquial, like what's up, or like maybe some more of the jargon. The AI was more proper, like, hello, Shelby, how are you today? Instead of like, how's it going? Yeah. So it was a little, the jargon was a little off, but it was scary for 2 reasons. One, I could totally see it tricking old people, and it would have me calling my mom saying, I'm in Costa Rica, send $1,000. And my mom being like, well, that's my voice. That's my daughter's voice. Let me like wire this money. So one, scared me because of that. Cause I was like, oh no, people are going to get tricked because the AI is strong enough that it could really be tricky. But 2, it made me think like, again, podcasting could in the not too distant future, 2 years from now, Sam could say, I don't want to do the podcast anymore. I'm going to have my content writer do a script. And the AI is going to do my podcast. And so I think another kind of plus of live streaming is like, it's us. Like it's Kim and Shelby in real life. There's no AI. It's not fake. It's not pre-recorded. And I think that is also a really special, I think live is going to become more valuable as AI develops.
Which is interesting you say that. I wish I remembered what his name was. I follow him on LinkedIn. I'll put it in the show notes. But he recently did an experiment where he did a very edited video and then he did like a live stream on YouTube, and he compared in this post like the views on the very edited versus the very not edited. And the very not edited one way outperformed the other, because I think people are really craving like that real life, real connection with people. We're tired of seeing like all of the editing and all of the like, I don't know. And I think there is a time and place for that. But I do really feel like people joining live streams are so fun because like right now, like we know Jen is there. We know Tatiana is there. And it's like, oh, yay. Like people are here and we can all kind of talk together and you get feedback in real time. Like, oh, that didn't really make sense. Let me explain it a different way versus maybe getting a DM later of like, can you explain that? Whatever. it's just a conversation with your friends. And I think that's fun.
When you talk to people who are, they either, whether it's through you or your LinkedIn Live, which you have now, or not, your LinkedIn Learning course that's all about going live, rather, when you kind of have those initial calls with people that are kind of, they're getting the spidey sense or they're getting the tingling, like, I'm interested in this, I'm curious based off what Shelby's saying, but what are like the 2 or 3 things that you think are kind of the biggest humps that people start to get curious and then they hit these like roadblocks? Like, what are those?
Okay, so something I learned from you that has been brilliant and helpful as I have grown my business is episode 0. Have an episode 0 where you have low expectations of the broadcast. You just, it's kind of like when they say the hardest part of going running is putting your shoes on, that kind of thing. Like, it's just, we're doing it. We'll see what happens. And that has been super helpful because I tell people, like, this is just, we're just getting comfy. Like, you don't need to worry too much about the analytics of this one. Like, let's just go live. Because I think that is a big hump to get over, is like, you go live, you're nervous, you're looking at the comments. And if there's not a ton of comments, you're like, why am I doing this? Like, what is happening? But when you go back in like a week, you forget, like, this lives on your platform. Like, this is now a video on your platform and people watch it back. So a lot of times when I was going live, I'm like, okay, like, I'm doing this because I got to practice what I preach. But then later I would get messages of somebody being like, hey, I couldn't catch you live, but I watched it. Like, it was great, this and this and this. And like, I think kind of rewiring your brain on the analytics and the numbers of it is huge. That's what I would say.
That's huge. And I will say, you know, again, a lot of people don't get to see, you know, the behind the scenes that you and I see specifically in my inbox after these lives, whether a lot of people listen on podcasts, we can see it. So a lot of people are listening while they're folding the laundry, while they're going for a run. So they aren't necessarily here live. And then we have a lot of people in different time zones. I mean, we will get people in Dubai. We will get people in Shanghai that are writing saying, hey, it's 2 days later. And they're saying like, hey, really loved that sales discussion that you had with Jake Dunlap. And I'm sitting here going like, wait, it's Friday. We recorded that on Wednesday, you know, but it's really is like people are consuming content whenever they have time to.
Which
so
they should, by the way. You know what I mean? Like, I love the idea of just like how you've done this, Kim, of like allowing people to listen different ways or even hit the blog if they just want like a summary. Like, it's brilliant because not every discussion is going to be everybody there all the time, and that's totally fine. We want people to be able to consume the way that makes sense for them. I would say one other thing. Oh, we can jump to that if you want to.
Yeah, I'm curious because Giacomo brings up a great point. So if someone is interested in going live, but they feel like they have to have a certain niche, so I'm in cooking, so I have to talk about cooking, or I'm in sales, I have to talk about sales. I'll go first and then I'll let you go, Shelby. But I think for us, what we do a lot here is we follow our curiosities. So like, we don't know how to use AI. So we're like, let's go find somebody who knows how to use AI. Or like, we don't know much about sales. So like, let's go get a refresher. But I know you work on a lot of other shows. So do you feel that if somebody has to do a live, they have to have like a niche? Like, I only talk about sales.
So I've been like trying to figure this out myself as I've helped and like kind of coached people through different shows. And I think, actually, no, every show seems to kind of like it comes out, like it will eventually make sense. Like, you have to start, you have to have like a general idea, like for you talk to brilliant people. That's awesome. We find brilliant people, we get them on the show, we figure it out. For somebody else, they talk in tech. And so we find tech people and we figure it out. And that shows kind of niching down a little bit more to be more for like helping people get jobs in tech. So I think it just kind of a general sense maybe is great, but I wouldn't worry too much if you need to like turn left. Like, I think just doing something that you feel confident in and you have a network of other awesome people to talk with is great.
And I would also say, you know, the hardest part is starting and the easiest part is quitting. So I always tell people, just start. By the way, you could get 4 episodes in and say, you know what? I don't like it.
Yeah.
It's kind of like when you're with a toddler and you're like, why don't you try eggplant? And the kid's like, no eggplant. And then they try it and they might not like it. They might eat it and eventually say like, no, eggplant is gross. But there's also a chance that they eat the eggplant and they're like, not too bad. And so I also feel like live has the same effect.
Right. And I do feel like it kind of gives you, I would also add, having at least a month of like your planned out content, depending on how often you're going live. I always say, so if you're doing a monthly show, try to do a quarter, plan out a quarter. If you're doing a weekly show, try to plan out a month. Like, the worst thing you can do is get to the day you're supposed to be live and be like, oh my gosh, like, what am I going to talk about? Who am I going to talk to? Like, that planning and preparation beforehand. I know you and I we've been good planners and we've been not great planners. And we both know that being the good planner is a better option. And I think that helps reduce a ton of stress and like, oh yeah, it's all good. I'm going to talk to my friend Jen tomorrow. So whatever, like, I think that's huge.
And I think it's important to, again, know that no one is locking you in. So if you decide after a month, you know what, it's just not my cup of tea, then that's fine. And going back to that episode 0, one of the things that I always tell people is announce it as a limited series. So like, hey, my name is Sally. I'm going to host a limited series of 4 lives where we talk about getting jobs in tech or, whatever. And then if you do more, it's kind of like cherry, on the sundae. But if you don't, you only promised a limited series anyways.
Right. And I would also add, I feel like this might be a little bit spicy of a take, but I feel like we saw a lot of people doing workshops where we're like having to join via Zoom. And I almost feel like live streaming is a better option because I know I've joined a ton of those workshops where I'm like mid peanut butter and jelly sandwich making. Like, I'm like, oh yeah, like they can see me. Like, I like to join live streams because it's like, oh, I'm just in the comments and I can, like Jeff always is popping in funny dad jokes here and there. And it just kind of like takes the pressure off of your audience joining as well, I would say. So if you're doing workshops that are closed Zoom workshops, you might consider doing a couple live and just making it more public.
1,000%. And I would always say, like, just remember on social media, 90% of the time it's full of lurkers. And what I mean by that is, again, Shelby and I can see the back end analytics. So I'll just use our conversation with Jake, for example, last week. I think we had, whatever it was, 85 people join live. But if you actually look at who commented, it was maybe like 20 people. So it was like we had 45 lurkers, which is fine. And we always say, if you want to sit back and you want to relax and just like join the live, but not really type, that's fine. But I think it's also helpful to know that people are absorbing the content. They just might not be click-clacking to join in.
And I also appreciate how you always say like, hey, join in the comments, because as more live streams have been more popular, I think a lot of times hosts forget to include their audience. And I think that's a key piece in live streaming. Like, that's like the biggest missed opportunity is if you're not talking to your audience, you might as well not do it live. But if you're talking to your audience, you're going to get more bang for your buck. And the engagement rate, like just number wise, talking to your audience helps big time. Big time.
Oh my gosh, it's massive. And to your point, if you're not going to include people and that's one of the perks of going live, then you might as well record it and edit it out and make it look all pretty. Because if you're not going to include other people and ask questions, why are you doing it?
And I do feel like a lot of people on the internet right now are talking to their audience. People aren't talking with their audience. I say that in my LinkedIn learning course because I really feel like that is the sweet sauce of live streaming is we're all talking together. I'm not talking at you. I'm not trying to, I'm trying to include you and have a good networking situation here, not like a me telling you everything situation.
I'm glad you brought up your LinkedIn Learning course. So for anybody that doesn't know, Shelby now has her very first course, hopefully one of very many, that is in the LinkedIn Learning library. Can you, for anybody that's joining that didn't know, one, doesn't know what LinkedIn Learning is, and two, didn't know you had a course, can you kind of give them an overview?
Yes, absolutely. So LinkedIn Learning has like quite literally changed my career. Not even just me doing the course, it's me interacting with other instructors, like brilliant people, super like thought leadership people. Is that a term?
Yeah.
They like the best of the best is on LinkedIn Learning to learn things. So we're not like just trusting whatever course platform there is. LinkedIn Learning is a great space to get trusted professionals that really know what they're doing and have known what they're doing for a long time. So that's the first portion of what LinkedIn Learning is. And then I was so lucky to be able to do a course on Streamyard. All of this that is happening here is happening because of Streamyard, and we love Streamyard. I have tried different live streaming softwares, and Streamyard seems to be I love their team. I love their software. They've had a ton of really fun updates, even since I've done my course. And it really makes the live streaming process awesome. So my course is all about setting up this situation, making it look pretty. A couple of tips. My favorite portion of that course is what to do when things go wrong, because things may go wrong at some point. And so I kind of just share all of that information there in the course for everybody to copy, because let's be honest, I want you all to win. So
What do you think? What questions do you get asked most about the course?
I would say it's probably the overlays. So for anybody who doesn't understand, well, overlay is kind of like a niche word anyways, but an overlay is basically what you see at the end of the broadcast or what you see at the beginning of the broadcast that is like a stagnant picture that lays over the video. And I think that's kind of like the most important part about live streaming is having a couple of those overlays, those stagnant pictures, so that if something goes wrong, you have a more appealing way to make it look while you're troubleshooting, while you're solving problems. And that's just by I always recommend having one for when you start the broadcast, one for when you are live, so something like this, and then one at the end to end the broadcast in a beautiful way.
Oh, I love that. What do you feel like was the hardest part of you actually creating the course? Because again, you're used to being behind the scenes.
So while I was there recording the course with the LinkedIn Learning team, I told them, I was like, this is the most empathy training, I think is the term. I had no idea what goes into creating a course. And all of the logistics, and just it's different. You can be good at what you do, but teaching other people how to do what you do is like an entirely different skill set. And I have several clients who are LinkedIn Learning instructors, and it was just like, oh my gosh, by the end of it, I was like, y'all are amazing. Like, holy moly.
I get it. I mean, it's a lot of work and people don't realize just how much work it actually is.
Yes, and shout out to my producer. She was wonderful, wonderful. Her name was Catlin, and she and I had to kind of problem solve on the run, because live streaming, obviously, your face is on the screen. So I'm explaining a software, but I am also I think they call it live action. I'm also on the screen while I'm explaining it, which was a little bit challenging, honestly. So she helped me through big time, and the editing team, I'm sure, was cursing my name by the end of it, but it was so fun, and they did such a great job, and I'm very happy with how it turned out.
I'm curious, Kelly's question, if you do want to go live, but you don't have a necessarily like a Shelby, and I know you've gotten this question before about how does one go live, or what are the best practices for going live if you don't necessarily are advanced enough to have your own producer, or how that works.
Yeah, 100%. And I totally understand that, that you can't always have a Shelby behind the scenes. And I don't think you necessarily have to. I would just make sure you have some contingency plans for if things go wrong, and kind of like do a test run. So you can either do an episode 0, which I am all for, or StreamYard even has the option to record a stream just in the platform. So you can kind of just give yourself a little bit of like, you watch it back and you're like, okay, like let's tweak some things. But you could very easily do it yourself. Once you have everything set up, you can do it yourself.
Which again, possible, but also if you can get a friend or a version of Shelby to help you, highly recommend.
Or even just like a family member or somebody who like just having another person behind the scenes to kind of help, or be like, hey, that looks kind of funny. Maybe move something, you know, or whatever it is. I think it's huge, honestly.
Huge. And I would say, you know, another really helpful thing is to like use other people as a resource. And I think one of the worst excuses is when people say, well, I don't have anybody. Look around you in this virtual room right now. There's lots of people that would jump in and say, hey, I'll log on to a live for 5 minutes and, you know, kind of help you set it up. So I think the excuse of I don't really have anybody is not a great one, because there's a bunch of people in here that would happily help.
Yes, 100%.
1,000%. So I'm curious, Shelby, you know, when you talk to other people about going live, you tell them about episode 0, you tell them about all your hot tips, and they're actually doing it. Like they're actually on episode 0. What are the feedback, or what kind of results do you see after those first couple go live?
So I love watching people go from episode 0 to about episode 3, because I feel like that's kind of like episode 3 is when they're like, okay, I kind of get this. I kind of understand this. The other thing I would say is my biggest tip, give your audience time to respond to you. So you have to remember when you are live that there is about a 3 to 10 second delay from what you see on StreamYard, what your audience is seeing on LinkedIn, YouTube, wherever you're going live. So give them a second to hear you and to type. So usually I say about 15 seconds. So if you're asking a question, make sure that you're answering it yourself while you're waiting for the comments to come through. Don't assume that like people just aren't responding to you. More often than not, they're just waiting to either hear you or typing it out. I would say that that's probably my biggest thing that I notice while people are like actually live.
And do you find that that is true no matter what? Like whether you're using StreamYard or Restream, they all have a delay?
Yes. Yeah. Every one of them has a delay. I will say there is an option to go live with Zoom. And I very, very much do not recommend that one. I tried to do it because I wanted to know, like I've tried out different platforms. And Zoom for sure has like the longest delay, and you're not able to feature comments. I saw this one from Jim. How do comments come up on screen? Jim, I literally just clicked on your face in your comment. That's how it comes up on screen with StreamYard. So StreamYard and Restream both make it super easy for that feature.
What are some other behind the scenes features that you would want to explain to people? So whether it's the ticker at the bottom, or what are some, I guess, pluses that you think that are also helpful in addition to just the live stream?
I would say I love that you can star comments. So in the comment section, there's an option to just you hover over it and put a little star, which again is great if you have a producer, because I see also Jeff's comment that says, do you advise your guests to look at the camera or the comments? That is super hard when you're alone, to read comments and also look at the camera and, you know, do this whole situation. So I love having the starred comments area for your producer to kind of like go through and say like, these 5 ones are awesome. Take a look at these. And then when it makes sense, you can bring them on screen. I'm also very excited about what they're doing with AI behind the scenes for StreamYard. They have an option to create a thumbnail using AI. And now they also have an option to do like short clips, like think reels or shorts for YouTube, they have an option to auto generate those clips. I've not been super impressed with what they've done, but I have high hopes that it will improve.
I mean, let's hope that it improves.
Yes.
We can only hope.
Yes.
I mean, there's only up from here.
Yes. Oh, and one last one that I would add is you can put markers in the conversation. So by hitting B, you can mark like, oh, I loved this portion. Kim said something awesome right here. And then when you go back to edit, you will have like a little flag on that timestamp, which has been really awesome for me.
No, it's hugely awesome. And it's also one of those things that, again, don't be intimidated. You learn these things as you're in it. And you also just have to like forgive yourself for not being perfect straight off the bat.
Yes, which is honestly my favorite piece of live streaming. I'm saying this as somebody who's on screen right now, and I don't mean it when I'm the one on screen, but when when the host is on screen and something goes wrong and you get to see more of like a personal response to that I do think is important for your audience to see, and you shouldn't worry too much about it and just let it flow.
No, at some point you have to just like let it ride. Yeah. Like do the best you can. I mean, I feel like my screen froze like 5 minutes ago, and I'm just like, we have to roll with it because my computer's like barely moving. We're on live, so you keep rolling and you do the best you can. Exactly, it's live. You do the best you can with what you got, with what's in front of you. That's it. Every time. So how many shows are you working on right now?
Okay. How many shows am I working on? Is that what I just heard from you?
Yes.
Okay. So I've actually started offering something that I'm really, really excited about, where I'm working with people who have like a whole marketing team. Like, so I'm producing several shows like me.
Yes.
But I'm so excited about this. There's a couple of people I don't want to share too much, but they're like well set up marketing team, and I am just consulting the team on what to do, which for me, I'm one of those people who, if I am a part of whatever it is, Coffee with Kim or other shows, I will wake up in the middle of the night with an idea, like, and I kind of got to a place in my business where it was like, I can't be this invested with every single show. So I'm very excited about this new thing that I'm offering, where I am helping the assistant or the marketing team to do the magic. And then I'm kind of, I'm there for questions, but I'm not as involved with the everyday of producing the show, which has been fun. Okay, Kim, I think we have officially lost you. I was waiting for this to happen. I knew it was coming. So I'm going to remove you. Okay, looks like you dropped from there. So I'm going to go through the comments for the next little bit. And if we can get Kim back in, great. If not, we will go ahead and end in a couple of minutes. So ask away. Unfortunately, because I've been in the stream, I've not been able to actually star the comments like I would. Let's see. How many shows do you recommend per week? Or is this like asking how long is a piece of string? Okay, so here's what I recommend. Here's what I've told people is, if you are used to producing daily content on LinkedIn, you can do a like weekly show. I think that's completely doable. And I think that that's great. If you are one of those people, I'm one of those people who produces content about once a week on LinkedIn, I, Shelby, aim for a monthly show. So I'm showing up once a month on LinkedIn Live because that's what I feel like is doable. I have little ones, so live streams are a little bit more. There's more logistics that go into making sure you're not hearing and seeing craziness in the background. And then even if you're just like, I want to do it, but it seems like a lot, a quarterly show. If you've never done live stream, try to do quarterly. And I think you'll be impressed by even that, how that will kind of get, there we go, how that will kind of get you, just at least get your feet wet with the live streaming thing. A quarterly show, if you've never done it, I think is totally doable.
Wouldn't that be great if we planned this whole thing?
Hilarious.
Like, oh, and then something goes wrong, and then I'll go out, and then you'll come
and
in,
then I'll be
then,
there.
yeah, this was all planned, everyone. This was just to show you that when things go wrong, you know how to handle them.
Yes. But it really though, and it will go wrong. At some point, things do go wrong with live streaming. It is not a big deal. I think all of y'all will agree that like it's fine. Kim had some internet issues. She's back. All good.
All good.
Yes, thanks, Jeff.
Very meta. I love it. And I know I can confidently say that this community doing these lives every single week has been such a game changer in my business. And I think it's also been a huge game changer in your business as well.
It has. I'm very excited about what it has offered me. I have also been able to grow my team with other people in my family who have been able to help me with these live streaming events, repurposing of content, all of those things. And it has been just so fun to see what has come from this. So I love Jeff is like, this is absolutely the perfect example.
This is it. This is the piece de resistance.
I wanted to, can I just answer this one real quick?
Definitely.
I use Zoom. Do you feel that is a good platform for live sessions? Britta, I am telling you, your life will be so exponentially easier if you switch to Streamyard. Zoom, it has a lot of like, you push this and then you push this and then you're over here and then where are the comments at? So that's just my quick recommendation, and let me know if you need some help because I'm telling you Streamyard is a much easier tool. So
I agree. I think really when you're starting out, you know, we've had people come to us saying, oh, Kim and Shelby, now that you guys have done so many of these, like you have to move to Restream or you have to like kind of do all these bells and whistles. And like the way I always look at it is like, I want the down and dirty. Like I want the basic. I want the free 99 or like low price. I don't need some $5,000 a year software because it'll send, you know, moving fireworks in between Shelby and I. Like, I don't need that. Like, I think sometimes people get so caught up in the bells and whistles that they think like, oh, well, I'm going to need StreamYard Pro and I'm going to need. No, like if you are literally starting and you don't even know if you want to do this, like there's a free version of StreamYard. Literally it will cost you nothing. It is super basic. We have like this logo here above my head and like this, you don't need any of that. You literally like just start with nothing. Like it's already intimidating enough to go live. Don't overcomplicate it for yourself. Like,
well, and if you remember, like we have changed drastically. I know Jeff and Giacomo and everybody, we have changed drastically since we started. And that's something I've learned from you, Kim, is like, we can always do it differently later. Like it doesn't have to just be this, and the branding doesn't have to just be this all the time. Like we can change. And that's been huge for me on a lot of different ways too from you. That's a huge lesson I've learned of like, you can always change it. You can always edit it. It's fine.
Always change it. You can always edit it. Like it's just, it's free flowing. Like don't worry. Don't freak out. And I would also say for anybody, you know, I was thinking about it to your point, Shelby, of when you're first going live and you're kind of super nervous and whatever. I do the same thing, by the way, whenever I'm doing any like public speaking or anything, I will put like plants in the audience. Like if I have a friend or somebody I know that works there or whatever, I'm like, hey, when it gets to the end and I say, are there any questions? If nobody raises their hand, I need you two to like pipe up and ask a question, because hopefully once you ask questions, you know, it allows the floodgates for everybody else. So I would say if you are going to do a live, one, come here Wednesdays at 1 p.m. and tell us so that we can join yours and support you. And I think that also helps you feel a little bit like, oh, well, at least I have these 3 people and they will kind of help facilitate the questions.
And it does big time. Like once people are commenting, other people are commenting. Like it does. It's definitely a situation like that, where it's like people are like, can I talk here? Can I ask that question? And then once a couple get flowing, like it gets a lot more comfortable.
Yeah. And I love that Jeff wrote, I'm valuable as a plant. You are.
But he's the best. He's the best.
Yeah. Exactly. You have to work on your plant pose. Sounds like a yoga thing. Like plant pose, going for it. But yes, I think having plants is huge. Okay, Shelby, I'm going to ask you the question that usually you hear me ask everybody else, which is, what is the homework assignment that you would give all of us who might be a little curious about lives or maybe want to dabble in it a little bit more? What homework assignment would you give us?
Ooh, I would say, and I've been thinking about this question and I was like, how am I going to answer this? Because I think a lot of times it's awkward to see yourself on camera. And so if you're not even doing videos, which totally understand, like for me, the logistics of like finding a quiet place, getting good lighting, all that is overwhelming. So like if you're not recording videos for your content, download an app like Marco Polo or some sort of app where you're seeing yourself on video frequently. Even in Instagram, I think you can send like video messages. Like send some of those to your people, to your mom, to your sister, and kind of just get used to talking to a camera. And I think you'll be surprised how when you go live, it'll just feel like a conversation, similar to Zoom, like Zoom, samesies. Just get comfortable with like watching it back a little bit. And I would say that would be like my first step. If you're like, okay, Shelby, I know you're saying this, but it's very uncomfortable. I totally understand. But that would be my homework assignment, is to try something like that. Oh, and Jen says in LinkedIn, you can send video messages. So Send me a video message. That's my homework. Send me a video message on LinkedIn.
I love that homework assignment. And we're going to make this a 2-part homework assignment because I love Terry's kind of follow-up question, which is if we already know that we want to do a LinkedIn Live. So, Shelby has sold us on this. We already know that we want to do it, but how can we promote it, or how can we tell other people about it? What homework assignment would you give to anybody who's like, okay, I'm convinced, I'm going to start this thing, but how do I let other people know about it?
First of all, I'm excited for you. Bravo. And second, I think the biggest thing, and something that I struggle with, even getting the actual event scheduled at least 2 weeks in advance to let the LinkedIn algorithm do its thing and promote it. Because sometimes I'll see somebody's like live and I'm like, oh man, I missed it. Like I didn't even know that they were going to be live, but I would have added that to my calendar. So I would say making sure you schedule it at least 2 weeks in advance, and then talking about it, like doing a post here and there about it coming up. Kim, you do a great job with those posters that have like some talking points, so the people that are joining the broadcast like actually know what value is coming from that. And then just kind of, I don't know, talking to your audience beforehand, I would say.
Huge. And I would say, again, you're going to be sick of talking about it, but just know that the algorithm doesn't show every single post to every single person.
Yes.
So, you might have to do the post 3-4 times before somebody says, oh, I saw it for the first time. So you're going to be sick of hearing yourself talk about this, whether it's in written form or video form or however you want to get the word out. But unfortunately, you must do that.
And emails are great too. I know people that have like email marketing. That's awesome too. I have a client who sends one out an hour before she's live. I feel like it helps. It's great. That's what I would say. So.
And last but not least, this question from Britta is super important. Can anyone do a LinkedIn Live?
Yes. I believe you have to have 150 followers still. If you have 150 followers or connections, same thing, you should have access to LinkedIn Live.
And then you'll be good to go.
Yep. And I will be there in the comments, Britta. Send it to me. I'm there.
Exactly. Send it to all of us. Shelby, thank you so much. This was really helpful. And as always, you rolled with the punches, which was totally planned by us.
Totally. That's all planned.
To demonstrate how great LinkedIn Live is.
Exactly. I love it. I love it.
I love it. Okay, Shelby, one more time, where can people find your course? Where can people keep learning from you and absorbing all of your goodness?
Okay, so I actually added my own, Natasha helped me add this fancy banner that says where my course is, LinkedIn Learning. It's called Streamyard, Tips for a Successful Event. I am talking through how to set up StreamYard, but I took more of a like, here's how we use it, and kind of more of a tips versus how to approach to that course. So something that's just a little bit more personalized, I would say, my course is than what you'll find on like the StreamYard FAQ page. So that's where I would love for y'all to go and ask me questions about it. Like I am 100% invested in your live show. Reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm excited. Invite me to your show. I really genuinely will be. I will be in the comments. I will be there. I promise.
1,000%. Shelby, thank you so much. And thank you, everybody, for joining us today. This was really fun and a fun opportunity for Shelby and I to be in front of the camera together.
Yes. Thank you, Coffee with Kim crew. Y'all are the best. And we'll see you next week.
Bye.